So let's start from the beginning. Um, Maybe you can just, for our video purposes, can you just introduce yourself and just say what you have been doing and what you have doing a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Ronald Kibirige, come from Uganda, and right now I'm in Uganda. And I am a musician. I'm a dance researcher, dance musician, and I'm a practitioner, community dance music practitioner from Uganda. Come from this village where we make drums within the south central part of Uganda. And I teach at Mackay University in the field of dance and music. I also am a uh, postdoc at NTNU, and I've done research in many aspects relating to war and post-war conflict zones, and especially in northern Uganda, in the district of Kitgum, close to the border between Uganda and South Sudan. And that was where my fieldwork was for my PhD. So I'm combining these the elements of music and dance to fit into the aspects of well-being of community, but also for individuals. And that is actually what my postdoctoral research is about. But I'm also a fan of musicking with children, and this connects also with a project that we have in northern Uganda, but also with the children's project that I have in Kampala that I've been working with. I'm not the administrator now, but I'm the founder of it, and it has been for over 18 years since we founded it, and still going on, and we're very happy this going on. It's so connected to rehabilitation, support for children through the arts and education. And that is who I am. And I deal with primary, secondary, and post-secondary school children and through the arts, but also having fun and research and investigations relating to life. Generally, well, that's very general, but really music and dance is about life. Everything that we know about life is within what I think is rhythm, rhyme, and time. And this is connected to everything, or our body metabolism, our everything, even within the social aspects of life. So that's me.
Amazing. And you're talking about Peace Africa Child, right?
Yeah, Peace Africa Children, yeah.
Peace Africa Children, that is the name of the organization. And could you say what we were talking about a bit earlier about your postdoc focusing on maybe the aspects of healing, health, well-being, trauma, or things like that? Just a
Yeah,
little bit what you're thinking of doing in your postdoc.
yeah. It's a long thread coming to fruition to now in this part of phase of research, but phase of life too. I was brought up through an orphanage, and after that I opened a children's agency that supports children through music and the arts with education, and that is a Peace Africa Children, and we started in 2002. As I said, it's not I'm not in the administration now because I'm doing other things, but I'm still supporting the organization in so many ways. But in dealing with these children, there's so many things that come to play all these years, and you learn a lot, and you learn about experiences. And many children were coming from different parts of Uganda and East Africa, and many of them were coming from northern Uganda because we had a very long, one of the longest conflicts on the African continent that started in 1986 and ended in 2006. So we had so many children at the organization that were coming from that area, from that region, coming for support. And northern Uganda is very, very culturally versatile, and all the children were coming, and the only thing that they had was their art. They could play, they could sing, and for them, they didn't have any money or anything, but that's what they had. So we tried to capture that and draw on that to rehabilitate them, to support them through So this drew me close to Northern Uganda in so many ways. And during my master's degree, after my bachelor's degree, my Koremundu's master's degree, I did fieldwork in Kidgumbat in one of the districts. And after that, I did my PhD again with research in Northern Uganda relating to the concepts of reconciliation and social cultural integration in the post-war community of Northern Uganda, and did my research near the border between Uganda and South Sudan. Before South Sudan, there was the war with South Sudan, but then the war came after South Sudan broke up from South Sudan, and you had so many refugees. So all this came into play, and this connecting these to my own being in an orphanage, connecting to Peace Africa, and connecting to my own research at master's level to PhD level, and now comes the postdoc level where my particular project is related to community well-being and social health relating to the arts, particularly music and dance. So it is like I'm harnessing everything that I have lived for the last 15 years into this time when I can sit and write and be able to contribute to community through scholarly works, but also field work at the moment, where we have a center for music dance center within the local community, that the local community came up with it, but developed through in the time of my PhD. So they are running it, and they're doing so many things. So when I'm doing research, I just go there. I support them like I support other organizations in so many ways. So this is how my this is what leads into my postdoc research. But one other leg to that postdoctoral research is because it is also related to education, teacher education. So, because I'm at the Institute of Udaneng, which is Institute of Teacher Education at NTNU. So I am linking all these social well-being within the context of primary schools, which with the children that I've been supporting, and also secondary school, because the organization Peace Africa Children now has a nursery school and is collaborating with so many secondary schools. So it all comes together in a context, but pointing mainly at Northern Uganda, where I did my field work. I don't know whether
That's impressive. The consistency that you keep in trying to just live your life in a way that it feels a puzzle, the pieces to a puzzle. That is very impressive, actually. You should be very proud of that.
It's
Because it
fun.
takes a lot of consistency,
Yeah.
a lot of commitment. Okay,
Mm.
so I know some of this through Coromundus, through our masters, but I would like for me personally as well to know a little bit, if you could do just a little wrap up of the conflict in northern Uganda, a little bit of history of the LRA, and just some maybe the aftermath of that. Like in a nutshell, what would you say that had, what impact have you seen that it's had?
Yeah. That's yeah, we can spend a day talking about that. Uganda has been since 1962, when we got independence. Every president that has come into power has come through a kind of a coup or related to a coup in a way. And when we broke off when we became independent, we started fighting. Since 1962, all the presidents that have come into power not like in an upright vote or whatever that is, until 1986, when the current regime came into power. But when you look at the history of Uganda, all the leaders that have come into power have mainly been from Northern Uganda. So when we had, of course, there are others that have come within other regions, but they came, for example, we had one that had the presidency for a very short time, and he was shot dead. So there was this kind of tension that developed when the current leadership came into power in 1986. The faction went off and then started fighting, but they related it to a religious kind of attachment that is that's what they call the Lord's Resistance Army. I still ask myself about this kind of analogy, but it has had a very huge impact after the 1986 capture of power of the current regime, and this put all of the northern Uganda region into chaos. There's the Joseph Kony became, started making operations and killed his own tribesmate and captured children into captivity, and all these so many atrocities that happened within this time. Most of them, some of them I saw on video on TV, but I had, as I said, the children that came from Northern Uganda due to this war that would narrate all these things. And I personally experienced this war through the children that were taken care of. But when I went up for research in the post-war community, it became live. I could see the ruin. I could see the gap and the void that existed during all this time. So children were abducted and then, indoctrinated and then forced to come back to their own tribesmate to perform atrocities, kill and slaughter, manslaughter, and all that. So it was really a bad situation that even the reconstruction of Northern Uganda after that was not effective. People think that the Northern Uganda war was really stopped because of the government intervention and aid from abroad. But it is a very different thing when you are on the ground. Of course, internationally we see that, we hear that, and that, but the war stopped and people continued to fight inside, in their hearts. And NGOs stationed in Northern Uganda and did a lot of commendable work, even the government itself. But there's a time when all these things end, the NGOs will leave, and the communities are left to use what they know they relate to, they have known for ages. And those are the arts, and those are the social interactions they have been dealing with for being there in their life for centuries. So even though many people, yes, of course, the government did a great job to end the war, and a lot of support from everywhere in the world, including Europe and everywhere. But it is naive to say that that's what ended the war. It's really the understanding of the communities, their traditions and cultures that really brought peace. And this, for me, I can attest to this because I've done research there. I stayed in Northern Uganda for over a year and a half. I'm stationed there and interacting with people, living with people, and all these experiences that I've been having with the children that I've been supporting in the organizations that I support. So just a wrap up, this is the war started in 1986 when the current leadership came into power, and then it happened all through up to 2006. 20 years of war, 20 years of fighting. People were taken from their families to IDP camps, and then after 10 years we are given the freedom to go back when they don't even remember where their mango tree was, or where their shed was, or where they had their garden. So it was just a start all over. And when we talk about intangible culture, heritage and culture, this becomes a very huge dilemma, because the contexts change the moment you move from where you're living, from where you are, your life has been stationed to another place where everybody is clamped. So as I say, there's a lot that can be said, but there is a lot of work that has been done, but still there's a lot of work that needs to be done within Northern Uganda to get back to its original, if that can ever happen, original
Yes, or
footsteps.
a new version of things, a new peaceful version of things. Is this, you mentioned, I just wanted to emphasize that you're talking about recruited child soldiers, right? This is an important thing to mention. Um, and also, you mentioned the local practices that were developed there, and I'm guessing that you are talking of Matoput and
Yeah.
some
No, they were not
some
just developed for the war. They existed
they
before.
existed before. That's what I wanted to ask, and maybe we could go into this because if besides Matoput, you were working also on Lamokowang.
Yeah.
Is that the right thing to say? So
Yeah.
if you could just tie this up and give some, perspective on this different worldview on the justice system and how it is important to really decolonize, ways of thinking. Because many people, I think, Ubuntu has become very popular lately in different social media things. So I think it's important to mention other parts as well.
Yeah. And Ubuntu, if we could start from there, Ubuntu also translates to Acholi, where they call it Bedodano. It's a derivative of Ubuntu. And I've actually written about that in my dissertation as part of developing from this reconstitutional and social cultural integration perspective. But to get back to what you're saying, there is the social justice system that existed. My research in Northern Uganda was the process of musicking and dance musicking within all these contexts. But in order to contextualize that, because most of this musicking and dance musicking is done through rituals. And one of the rituals you're talking about is the matoput. I actually experienced matoput myself firsthand, because in order to understand the process of healing, the of even the justice system, you have to understand the context in which you are, in which the music and dance music is, and the dancing is unfolding. So, yes, the Acholi have had their own justice system for centuries. And it became very explicit when the government, for example, asked them, the Hague asked the government to hand over corn. And when this happened, the government had to interact with the leadership, with the local cultural leadership of within Northern Uganda, and they said, okay, we don't know about the Hague, but we have our own justice system that we have practiced for over the time, and the government had to adjust that perspective, because even if they said, okay, we will do this by force, they would not get the evidence. They would have the Hague would need. So there was a lot of buzz about this. Will it be the social justice system among the Acholi, among Northern Uganda, or will it be the international law, whatever that is? So yes, there has been a lot of interaction with that, and I got to understand that during my research too, that there is already, as I say, that the Acholi and many communities within Northern Uganda really have their own ways of living that actually was used and still used up to today to rehabilitate and be able to settle within, in order to have peace within. And this is through the cultural interactions and cultural beliefs and cultural and interactions through, for example, music and dance. And music and dance is just part of it. There's so many other things that they do. The ritual itself, the matofut itself, is a reconciliational and reintegrational ritual that is done, and within that there is a process of musicking and dance musicking. But if you do not understand it from the entire context of it, this is how many even funding agencies that have not really grasped the real essence of these traditions within the local people, that we will say. I actually had an interaction with one person that was saying that the matterfoot would not work because the war now expanded from Northern Uganda to other places and other places. But and I saw that this would be true from a modernistic context, but all these traditions and rituals are never stagnant. They go by what is in the community. If it extends to another space or another, it adjusts. It's adjusted in order to feed into. So the idea of letting these traditions be free to grow instead of suffocating them and putting them in a box that, okay, it happens here and cannot happen there and there. You know, we have rituals everywhere in Uganda, and even if Joseph Kony had to extend into South Sudan, by the way, we have these, yes, there is again, say in Norwegian, but a border between Uganda and but those borders are just recent. These people know each other. They already know each other. They are connected. From South Sudan, he also went to Congo, and we have a border between Uganda and Congo. So when you look at it from a more modernistic sense, or from an international law perspective, you cannot, these kind of perceptions can cripple the traditions and limit them instead of giving them the space to grow. And it is in these periods of time, this time, that you can actually test what you have, and you are able to expand. You are able to understand it from a larger perspective, rather than from a tribal perspective. I've got a feeling that many, even in academia, we look at tribes as from a narrow sense, rather than looking at them from a point of difference, but positive difference that can feed into each other. We have so many here. We have over 65 different linguistic tribes here, and whenever it is talked about, even within an anthropological point of view, it's difficult to talk about tribes. But I completely disagree with that. There are so many other things that come with this that are from a positive side, rather than just having a different language and different traditions. Sorry if I answered. I don't know whether I answered your question, but
No, that's amazing. You're taking it even further, actually. That's great. I've been having this internal dialogue in my head about even the term tribes, because it was tabooed from Western anthropologists, because it was more of a derogatory, oriental, racist, let's say, term, as if tribes do not exist all over the world in terms of different populations, geographically and linguistically. I would say that in southern Greece, we have there's a dialect that goes on that I don't really understand and I can't hear, and there's a culture heritage there. So why not call that a tribe, But it's strange, and then the reclaiming of it, because from my experience, Africans do not mind using the word tribe to explain that, oh, we're different tribes between Yoruba and Igbo and Hausa and all that, instead of going into this academic ethnic groups or culture populations or these things. So it's a very interesting change that is happening, and I'm also kind of trying to decolonize the term in my head. This is very interesting. I wanted to ask about either Matoput or Lamokowang, or even the third one that you mentioned, Betodano. How did you say?
Pedodano.
Betodano, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more practical, like, I don't know, more or less like its duration and the specific, a little bit, if you can put us in a world of like the music and dance aspect, are these culture elements allowed to be performed only there? They're used specifically there, or are they repertoire that is taken from outside? How does
Yeah,
it?
so there are three: Lamokowang,
Mm.
Matoput, and Bedodano. I would start with Matoput. From other populations outside the Acholi, we call it Matoput, but it is actually Matofut for the people who are living in Acholi people. Yes, it is a reconciliational ritual that actually goes on for takes quite a long time. But in so many YouTube clips and all these that we have available, I haven't seen any that captures the whole essence of the tradition. Even from a researcher point of view, of course, you have a time limit that you have to be here for a particular time, and you may not experience the whole unfolding of this, because the ritual takes a very long time to to unfold, because it starts with the families of the wronged and the families of those that wronged, and then shifts to the people who did the atrocity, and then from that they find solutions. So this unfolds for a long time, but when it is performed, then it becomes, okay, we do this and then this, and capture this and capture this and capture this. So what we experience is that we cannot make it work in a performative sense. It only works within its own flow of existence among the population. And this is what many people, or many even government officials here, fail to understand, that some of these traditions do not only unfold on their own within the different activities that happen within the communities. And this is also actually points me back to what the sentiments I was hearing during my research, that, oh, Matafoot doesn't work. It's only, and these are, more religious people that are talking about this, that, oh, it is not this or that, and then, and they, because it is not given its own space to unfold. This is why it is said not to work. But I strongly believe that these traditions work, and they have their many, many positive attributes, even though some of them have, negative connotations. But which tradition doesn't have any connotation and, negative connotation? Because in order for it to be a tradition, you have to delimit it from other things. So you take away other things and concentrate on a particular thing, and that is already canonization. So there will be something that is left outside and something that is left brought in from within. So to talk about what you're saying about the Matafoot ritual, it takes a long time, but if it is performed, it can take a day if it is performed, because then it has different sections that are can be put in a performative way. I've seen the performance of it, and I've also lived the flow of it, because my research assistant, for example, was an abductee. I can't tell you his name, but he was abducted and left his family and was in the bush and actually served the LRA rebels, the higher ranks of the rebel group. And then he was released, actually ran away to come back into his community. And Matafoot took its, flow. And he explains this very, very explicitly, that it's the reason why he was brought back into his own community, and he's a musician, a prolific musician and dancer. So to talk of Matafoot, it is really, and when you talk about it, usually the musical and dance aspects are not talked about. Why? Because they unfold naturally, not like because many from a performative sense, music and dance is talked about in relation to stage, audience, and performer and all that, but we never talk about the practitioners themselves, what they are, what they feel in that moment of doing, So yes, and this connects to Lamokowang that you mentioned that I should talk about. Lamokowang it's a dance and musicking tradition that actually it was the main focus, my focus of research in Northern Uganda for my PhD. And it is a reconciliation and social reintegratory dance, but it's also taken to be strictly for Northern Uganda, but it's practiced now everywhere because of its function,
efficacy,
efficacy within the community. So it's now because now there have been open borders. Now we know about the Acholi know about the Baganda, they know about all these. We come together through these kind of interactions, and music and dance are part of these interactions. So, and it has this idea, Lamokowang, because it's when you research a tradition and get to all these details of it, you then are able to realize what the people who are just talking about it from a plastic sense don't realize. In Kampala here, where I am, I've been practicing all these traditions, and I didn't know that this tradition was called Lamokowang until when I went to Northern Uganda. Here in Uganda, in Uganda, but here in Kampala, we know it as Larakaraka dance. It is because it's like the youthful way of talking about it. It's what is buzzing everywhere, that when you hear Larakaraka, then you know you are going to do this dance from Northern Uganda. But when you talk to the elders, the people who are actually practicing it, this Larakaraka is just a derivative of the entire tradition. It's just like this, it's got from the sound of the calabash, raka, 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 and they call it Larakaraka in a sense. But the tradition is called Lamokowang. And the philosophy, it is a philosophy, it is a way of life. It is separated in two different sections, La, Moho, and Wang. And each of those depict a particular aspect of life within, among the Acholi people. So it is a philosophy that links to the existence, life existence among the Acholi. And this is what sometimes we do not understand when we just have the time to perform and put something on stage, instead of looking at its very essence within the local community. So Lamokowang has been used during in the post-war context so much because of its integratory, its reconciliatory aspects. At the end of the matterhood, which many people do not get to when it unfolds in the long run, this people start doing musicking, dancing, and dance musicking, prompted by the situation. Not somebody saying that now we should sing. When it doesn't happen that way, somebody just stands up and feels like doing something and does something together, and before you know, the whole community is up musicking and dancing at the same time. And this is how Lamokowang has unfolded within the post-war communities, post-war context, that at the end, when the warring families, have come together, somebody or whoever feels they have taken some alcohol, of course, we imagine, and they start, somebody feels happy, feels something has come together, then they start singing. And when they sing, it develops into a larger context, and then they dance, and then they drink, and then they dance all over and again and again. And this is the way they come to an understanding and break all these barriers of that have existed because of the war, because of what their children of the grandchildren or children have done, against each other. And the musicking and dance musicking and also the drinking brings everything together, and everybody comes together in the sense. But it does not happen. It is a continuous process. It does not happen that, okay, after the matterhood it has been done, everybody dances and goes home. No, they dance and then retire and go home. And then when they meet again in another context, they dance. And so the dancing and musicking becomes a form of agency that makes, brings everything together, because they don't speak, they speak musicking. And there is a connection.
They find a common language, right?
Yes. So this is how it unfolds. This is the way I understand it. This is the way it has been described for me. This is the way I've lived it. This is the way, and it might be a little bit different from how international agencies perceive it, because I have a feeling that many do not believe that it works, but they actually believe that it works, and I have lived it to see that it works, even through my own research assistant, that explained this. And his father lives here in Kampala, and he has a family in Northern Uganda. I've stayed with the family forever, and I've actually, before talking to you here, I was talking to him for over an hour. So then Ubuntu, Ubuntu is philosophy, and it's now very, very common in Africa and among the Bantu people that are spread within Central Africa, East Africa, Southeastern Africa, even South Africa. The Bantu, Ubuntu comes from developed from the word Ntu, which means human or person. And there has been a lot of interaction with that. I talk a little bit about that within my dissertation, but my way of approach is that it has been talked about more from a macro perspective, and not talked about from a micro perspective. That the building blocks that that lead us to the macro perspectives. So and as a philosophy, it really has where it starts within it starts with the person, with the micro aspects of singing, musicking, or even interacting, greeting, all these things that come up, that are put together to the macro. And even though they actually are not bound to the analytics, they have a derivative of that. They have their own Ubuntu, and that's what they call Bedodan. I write a little bit about it within I think in chapter 7 of my dissertation. And for them, it, just as I have said, it's not only on the macro, but up to the smallest meaningful movement pattern. That, well, we always say that there is always interaction between the sonic and the motivic all the time. From what I have learned from interacting with this philosophy among the Northern Uganda people, but also within Buganda, where I come from, is that it starts with the micro aspects of doing. And it is from this that, this understanding that I am because another person is, comes to the very detail within what we do, how we interact with people, and how we understand each other in order to coexist in the process. But if you look at it, you look at it from only the macro at the macro level. Yes, it works. Everybody's writing about that. I have a friend of mine who has written a book about it, and very impressive. But from a dance analytical point of view, as you know, or music analytical point of view, it comes to how the phrases within the music and dancing come to each other, or coexist with each other, and how that meaningful aspect of it develops to the macro. This is the way I understand it. And not everybody has been talking about it in that way. So yes, to say it exists, and it exists even among the Acholi people, even people that share cultures between the South Sudan and Northern Uganda. In a way, sorry, maybe I talked too much.
Amazing. No, I'm listening like a child because you're connecting everything very nicely, actually. Yeah, okay. This brings, of course, 1,000 questions more, but and I do have details on, the dance, and if it's percussive, and if they're singing, and if there's specific movements, But maybe we can, I can later maybe link some. I don't know if there are any YouTube links of some dances that we could, see maybe online if they exist. But I think I would like to close with your personal, either academic or emotional, whatever thought you have on dance and music as healing trauma, um, making you deal with your past or your present or your future. If there's anything from all this experience that you've come to realize, are there any elements of these arts, these intangible arts that basically heal? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts lately based on your?
Absolutely, and actually, that speaks to the article that I'm writing at the moment. I've just sent the
Yes.
first draft. It has gone through the first internal review, and in this article, I'm talking about and referring to the experiences that I've been blessed to have, the vast experiences from the children. I had never written an article about Peace Africa children and how the music that we teach them and we interact with them really unfolds into their being well or being healthy. So, and in this article, I'm talking about the particular transcendences from where we first meet a child, or even within a school context, where we first meet a child and their transcendency, using the musicking and dance musicking to another state of being, or not state of being at the end. So we have the state of being which they come with, and the state of being which they achieve at the end. And what happens between these through we have the state of being, the state of unbeing, the state of becoming, and then the new state of being. And all this is visible through their musical and dance activities. because both at school where they go, but also at the home, the Peace Africa home, where they do their training and practice and all that. So to speak directly to what you're talking about, there has been always, again, going to the macro and micro, there has been always people saying that, okay, when you dance, you get healing, you get social healing, you get all this, but we never really point to that moment when that happens. That micro moment when you dance and you feel, or you sing, or you dance and you feel like you sweat it off, for example. And this happens in many ways. And among the Acholi, to go to Acholi, they have what we call Kuch Madrong. And Kuch Madrong is that moment of time when you lose yourself into an act or an action. I don't want to call it an act because it's not acting, like, impersonating and acting, but a moment of doing. And this is how I refer to it in the article. A moment of doing when you do not only connect your inner self, but you connect to the self of all the people that you are doing it with. One informant told me that this is a moment when he said that this is a moment where you feel as though there is nothing wrong in the world, that everything is okay at that moment. And it's really the ultimate moment of many traditions. For example, the Macho foot itself, the ritual, or the Lamokowang, because if you look at Lamokowang, they have La, Moko, and Wang. In the middle part, Moko means a point of interaction, a place of meeting. Literally, you can call Lamokowang as we meet with the eye, but it is metaphorical. And it is so many things that are embedded. For example, in the Moho section, a girl meets with a boy, and then they interact, and then they talk to each other through movement and dance, and come to, within a long period of meeting and dancing together, they come to a middle point where they can make a decision. Okay, I would like to meet your parents or whatever. But all this happens within the moho, the place of interaction, reconciliation. If you are having trouble at with your family or spouse, and you are in the dancing space during the moho moment, this is where you forget everything. You can fight when you go back home, but here it's a place of transcendence, place of healing. So the idea of healing unfolds within the process of doing. And this is the way I understand it. It is not that it is a prescribed time that you are going to get healed at this time. And this is what, makes some of these traditions a little bit ambiguous in accordance to, but the ambiguity comes in on a positive note too, because you will not know when you will heal for sure, but you know that you will heal in a way. And to pinpoint when that moment when you heal is a difficult moment, except if you really experience the ultimate of this tradition, the ultimate of doing. It is what is intended, reaching that bliss, reaching that point of that point when nothing matters but that moment. I don't know whether you get what I because I've
It
been
reminds me, no, absolutely. I was speaking of a similar thing in one of the a short podcast interview that I gave to the group of researchers on this project on children born of war. I was talking about the liminal state of what Victor Turner talks about, the liminal state, where in every kind of ritual or event or happening, you have this state where nothing is nothing and nobody is nobody, but at the same time, everything is everyone and everything is possible. This floating across time, and where risk taking happens. And after that comes transformation. And I remember Professor Ann David mentioning this a lot in her Cormundus course in London, saying how you can take a ritual from a wedding to a football game, and that part of play, the actual time, not the preparation and not the result, but the actual play in the field, that game, you're neither a winner or a loser. It's there where everything's happening. In a wedding, you're neither single nor married. It's that place of doing where everything there is, is extremely loose and playful.
Yeah, let me
So
know.
I think that's very similar what you're
You are
saying.
neither here or here, but you're in the middle,
Yes,
you know?
yes. It's this
So
liminal state, which is beautiful to use sometimes in things like this.
actually within this article I'm writing, I use Victor Turner with this liminality. I use the pre-liminal, the liminal, and the post-liminal phases, and explains it very, very well. But also looking at the detail of how that unfolds within the practitioner itself or himself, and how they feel in the moment. Because I've been in this kind of, because as you know, I play the long drum and all this, and actually in this article I talk about how it is possible to connect the drum player with the dancer, because it is a moment of anticipation. You actually play what they are doing without knowing that you're playing it, and that kind of connectivity between the dancer and the musician is a transcendence. It's like you don't know. We have a dance here called Runyege, and the long drum player is really practically interacting with what the boy dancer, the male dancer is doing. But in the training, of course, in the more contemporary world, you have the choreography and you have all this, but you never do what you practice at all. When dancing starts to happen, you play rhythmically, sonically, and we both the dancer and the musician and the drummer falls into this flow that anything can happen. You feed into each other, and it is very difficult to explain. I'm trying to explain this in words.
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. At the time where my washing machine is going off as well. That is exactly what I just wrote it down. You never do what you practice. Our training, our technique training is not to be applied in the field. You practice in order to be able to be free, to have the tools to improvise and jam and interact with what you have learned, but you are never applying the exercises or the repertoire or the choreography that you have learned. That is not the reason of training, and sometimes we forget that because we think, oh, I know this traditional thing, I can do it the same way 100 times everywhere I am, and that's not the point of it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you can never do it the same way you've done it yesterday. So I'm trying to explain this in because I have lived this and I play the long drum, and I even talk to the people that I play when they are dancing. Yeah, the way we explain it is, it's difficult to put it into words. So yeah, unfortunately I have to run, but yes.
So you should come and experience it. That's the thing. The thing is, like, you should just have to have first-hand practice. I'll invite myself. I've taken this as a self-invitation to come see it. Amazing. Thank you so much. And I remember you playing the long drum. We were doing that was the first thing I saw in African Rhythm in 5. You were doing tuku taka da shaka tuku tu punku taka. Do you remember that one? I can't remember which one it was. It was amazing. Yes, amazing. All right, Ronald, thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for this. Actually, really
This
helps
was
me to talk about
amazing.
what I'm doing. It's not it's not usual that you have a moment and you talk about what you're doing and how it is.
Yes. We need more of that. Ooh, thank you. I will stop the recording then. We can say our goodbyes.
Okay.